Yo, what's good, cutthroat mob and seekers of the unseen? You tapped into Peace of Mind, Reloaded, featuring your host, Princess the Goddess. Tonight, we'll be diving deep into the science behind cause and effect, karma, manifestation, and pretty much topics surrounding metaphysics. We'll be talking about soul frequency. In the vast Yo, what's good, cutthroat mob and seekers of the unseen? You tapped into Peace of Mind, Reloaded, featuring your host, Princess the Goddess. Tonight, we'll be diving deep into the science behind cause and effect, karma, manifestation, and pretty much topics surrounding metaphysics. We'll be talking about soul frequency. In the vast tapestry of existence, each of us carries a unique vibrational signature, a personal melody echoing through the cosmos. This is your soul frequency. It's the essence of who you are, a sacred hum that resonates with your deepest truths and highest potential. Imagine it as a celestial blueprint, guiding your journey and illuminating your path. When you align with this frequency, you unlock an incredible flow of energy, intuition, and creativity. It's a state of profound harmony, where your inner world mirrors the boundless beauty of the universe. How do you tune in? Through moments of quiet introspection, through practices that bring you joy, and by embracing your authentic self. Listen to the whispers of your soul, for they are always guiding you home. Let your soul frequency be your compass, leading you to experiences and connections that elevate your spirit. Embrace the magic within and watch as your world transforms. Sometimes the loudest battles ain't happening in the Sometimes the loudest battles ain't hap Sometimes the loudest battles ain't happening in the streets. They happening inside your mind where nobody can see you bleeding, but everyone swears you're fine because you learned how to walk around. Sometimes the loudest battles ain't happening in the streets. They happening inside your mind where nobody can see you bleeding, but everyone swears you're fine because you learned how to walk around looking strong while your soul is tired of fighting wars nobody even knows exist. Fear don't just show up screaming. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it creeps in quiet, sometimes it sits right next to you like a familiar friend convincing you this is as good as life gets, like growth is dangerous, like healing is optional. Like peace is something you gotta earn instead of something you deserve just because you're human and hurting. But fear ain't always the villain. Sometimes fear is the wake-up call. The alarm clock shaking your spirit saying, hey, you still here for a reason. Sometimes fear is the push that forces you out of survival mode and into evolution. Because truth is, nobody grows when they're comfortable, nobody transforms when everything is easy, and nobody becomes their higher self without walking through some darkness first. So, yeah, we fight silent wars, wars with doubt, wars with trauma, wars with old versions of ourselves we outgrew but still cling to because they once kept us alive. But at some point, the fight shifts. At some point, fear stops being the enemy and starts being the evidence that you're getting closer to something bigger, something better, something that requires courage, discipline, self-trust, and faith in a future you ain't seen yet, but can feel in your chest like a heartbeat, reminding you that you are still here, still choosing to try, still choosing to fight. So tonight, we're talking about the battles nobody talks about out loud. We're talking about fear, resilience, inner healing, growth, and the strength it takes to keep going when nobody knows what it costs you. Welcome to Unspoken, the wars we fight silently, because we're not suffering quietly anymore. We're understanding it, owning it, and evolving through it.
Have you ever noticed how fear be sitting right next to you like an uninvited guest in your house, feet kicked up on your couch, controlling your TV remote, and somehow telling you what you can and can't watch in your own damn life? Fear really be bold as hell sometimes, whispering in your ear, "Don't try that. What if you fail? What if they judge you? What if you're not enough?" Meanwhile, life is on the other side yelling, "Girl or boy, if you don't get your behind up and go do what you came here to do." Welcome back to Peace of Mind Reloaded, Cutthroat Mob, where we don't do that watered down healing, we don't play nice with trauma, and we damn sure don't let fear punk us out of our purpose. I'm your host, Princess the Goddess, and today we're unlocking a conversation that dives deep inside every single one of us. The fear that we don't talk about, the battles that we pretend that we ain't fighting, and the mental wars we be losing silently but refuse to admit fear be whooping our ass sometimes. We're going to talk about fear, not just as an emotion, but as a biological response, a psychological pattern, a spiritual energy, and a mindset that can either destroy you or make you unstoppable depending on how you handle it. Because let's be real, fear has been running a lot of y'all lives like a toxic relationship. One minute it's protecting you, next minute it's isolating you, next minute it's blocking blessings like TSA. But tonight, we calling fear out by name, understanding how it works and learning how to flip it from enemy to power source. Because fear, it don't just break people. Sometimes fear builds warriors. So without further ado, let's get into it. So, for segment 1, we're going to talk about fear, the silent general running the war inside of your head. Fear is not just some simple feeling that pops up when life gets uncomfortable. Fear is a whole system. It's a psychological heavyweight, a silent general commanding your emotions, decisions, reactions, behaviors, and the way you move through the world without even realizing how much power you've given it. It sits there in your mind, not always loud, not always dramatic, but real slick and strategic, whispering doubts, planting hesitation, convincing you that the safest route is the smallest one. And before you know it, you've spent years shrinking yourself to fit inside fears that were never meant to be like were never meant to own you in the first place. Fear, it doesn't always show up as panic attacks, or tears or breakdowns. Sometimes fear shows up dressed as discipline when it's really avoidance. Sometimes it disguises itself as logic when it's really insecurity. Sometimes it comes as a procrastination, talking yourself out of opportunities, convincing yourself that, "Oh, it's not the right time. Oh, I'll try later. Or maybe I'm not ready yet." When the truth is that you're terrified of seeing who you could actually become if you stop doubting your own power. Fear convinces you to settle for familiar pain rather than to face the unknown possibility of something better, because the brain is wired to protect you from anything that feels risky, even when that risk is actually growth, healing, purpose, and elevation. Furthermore, scientifically speaking, the brain doesn't distinguish between emotional risk and physical danger. The amygdala simply reacts to discomfort like it's a threat, triggering your fight. It triggers your fight, your flight, your freeze, or fawn response, shutting down possibilities, creativity, bravery, openness, and self trust. That's why people stay in toxic relationships or dead end jobs and draining friendships and stagnant lifestyles and small thinking, because even dysfunction feels rather safer than, uncertainty. Fear will always have you alive but not living, breathing but not thriving, existing but not evolving. And if you're not careful, it will quietly drain the life out of your potential until you look around one day and realize you've been surviving instead of stepping into the greatness that you were always capable of. Fear, it doesn't just hold you back. Fear, it shapes your identity, it rewrites your story, and convinces you to accept limitations that were never real. It becomes a habit, a mindset, a personality trait that you defend when it's really just, it's just the cage that you've gotten comfortable in. And the saddest part is most people never question it because it feels normal. Fear feels rational. It feels like protection, but in reality, fear is often the very thing stopping you from the life that was meant to be yours. Now, moving forward, we're going to talk about fear as a power. The same force that breaks you can build you if you learn how to stand in it. But here's the part that people don't talk about enough. Fear is not just an enemy. It's not always trying to destroy you. Fear is also a source of power, a signal of significance, a biological alarm clock that wakes you up to the fact that something matters deeply, and it carries the same energy that fuels courage, growth, transformation, and strength and elevation. If you learn how to face it instead of letting it chokehold your life, you know um, fear is the body saying, this moment is important. Fear is your soul saying, this decision could change you. Fear is your spirit saying, you're standing on the edge of a version of yourself that you've never experienced before. And stepping forward means leaving behind everything small, safe, and familiar and comfortable. That rush in your chest, that pounding in your heartbeat, that nervous energy, that surge of adrenaline when you feel that you're, about to do something that stretches you, that is the same, you know, um, physiological response the body, it's the same physiological response that the body produces during excitement, or ambition, courage, and power. The only difference is the narrative that you attach to it and whether you run from it or you step toward it. Growth it's not gentle. Elevation, it ain't romantic. Healing ain't soft. Becoming a stronger, smarter, wiser, more self-aware, disciplined, emotionally intelligent version of yourself requires discomfort. It requires confrontation, accountability, honesty with self, and the willingness to walk through emotional storms instead of avoiding them. Fear, it exposes weaknesses so that you can strengthen them. Fear reveals insecurities so that you can confront them. Fear highlights your limits so that you can expand them. And fear develops resilience because surviving fear teaches you that you are far more capable than your mind tried to make you believe. Fear, it often becomes destructive when you surrender to it, but it becomes powerful when you learn how to operate with it instead of under it. I'll say that one more time. Fear becomes destructive when you surrender to it, but it becomes powerful when you learn how to operate with it instead of under it. Fear, sometimes fear isn't saying stop. Sometimes fear is saying move with awareness or, proceed with caution, respect the moment, pay attention, stand tall, and don't go blind into something big, but go intentional. Fear can sharpen your intuition, deepen your consciousness, and heighten mental strength when you stop treating it like a monster and start recognizing it as a teacher. Sometimes people, they don't realize how much we learn from fear if you allow it to be your teacher. Stop letting it hinder you. Stop letting it be a burden in your life and rather use it like as a stepping stone or use it as something that would promote your evolution or promote your growth rather than to let it you know de how do I say, rather than let it take you backwards or de-escalate or let it bring you down. Stop letting fear take over your life. You have to be able and willing to look fear in its eye no matter what it is and say, okay, I'm not going to let you control my life anymore. I'm not going to let you stop me from being something great. Because how you going to let fear stop you from being something that you already are? If you're already great, don't let fear stop you. Continue to be great. Stop worrying about the fear of what others might think of you or how you may look in the public eye or other people's opinions, or stop, because you're not here for that. God didn't create you, whether you believe in him or not. God did not create you to give a fuck about other people's opinions or to seek validation from those other people. You need to start seeking validation from one within yourself. Well, first and foremost from God, and even is equally as important as you need to seek validation from yourself at the end of the day. And also at the end of the day, fear and growth they are tied together. You cannot grow without discomfort. You cannot become powerful without facing the parts of life that scare you. Fear will always exist, but it never but whether it cages or crowns you, it depends on whether you choose to submit to it or learn how to master it. Oh, pardon me. Ugh. Yeah, or learn how to master it. Every new level of life will demand a stronger version of you. Fear will always be the doorway. The question is whether you keep standing outside or you finally, walk through it. So, you guys, I have prepared something for you guys. And it's lovely. Oh, is it lovely? And while I bring that up, you guys enjoy this short little video
Sometimes
while
the
I pull it
loudest
up for you
battles
guys.
ain't happening in the streets. They happening inside your mind where nobody can see you bleeding. But everyone swears you're fine because you learned how to walk around looking strong while you're... Sometimes the loudest battles ain't Sometimes the loudest battles ain't happening in the streets. They happening inside your mind where nobody can see you bleeding. But everyone swears you're fine because you learned how to walk around looking strong while your soul is tired of fighting wars nobody even knows exist. Fear don't just show up screaming. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it creeps in quiet, sometimes it sits right next to you like a familiar friend convincing you this is as good as life gets, like growth is dangerous, like healing is optional. Like peace is something you gotta earn instead of something you deserve just because you're human and hurting. But fear ain't always the villain. Sometimes fear is the wake-up call. The alarm clock shaking your spirit saying, hey, you still here for a reason. Sometimes fear is the push that forces you out of survival mode and into evolution. Because truth is, nobody grows when they comfortable, nobody transforms when everything is easy, and nobody becomes their higher self without walking through some darkness first. So, yeah, we fight silent wars, wars with doubt, wars with trauma, wars with old versions of ourselves we outgrew but still cling to because they once kept us alive. But at some point, the fight shifts. At some point, fear stops being the enemy and starts being the evidence that you're getting closer to something bigger, something better, something that requires courage, discipline, self-trust, and faith in a future you ain't seen yet, but can feel in your chest like a heartbeat, reminding you that you are still here, still choosing to try, still choosing to fight. So tonight, we're talking about the battles nobody talks about out loud. We're talking about fear, resilience, inner healing, growth, and the strength it takes to keep going when nobody knows what it costs you. Welcome to Unspoken, the wars we fight silently, because we're not suffering quietly anymore. We're understanding it, owning it, and evolving through it.
All right, y'all. Now that we are back from that short break, as I was saying, I had prepared something for you guys, and I'm about to I'm about to show you guys. I'm about to share my screen with you guys. So, in this slide, as you can see, I've prepared a slideshow for you guys, right? Going through, and we might not go through all of it, but we'll be going through some of it. As you can see by the title of it, it is um, The Alchemy of Transformation. That is transferable into your most potent weapon, right? So, this is the table of contents. This is the navigation, the journey that we have ahead. You know, chapter one, being understanding fear. Two is the neuroscience. Three is the transformation framework. Four is the stories of triumph. And five is fear, the double edged sword. Two paths, one force. Fear is neither good nor bad. It is a neutral power that is awaiting your command. It can either cage you or propel you forward. The difference lies not in the feeling, but in your interpretation. Performance peaks under moderate stress. Too little leads to complacency, too much to overwhelm. Um, Then we have right here, the psychological truth, fear and excitement, how they produce identical responses. The label that you choose determines your experience. Fear as prison, and when fear is seen as a stop sign, it creates a cycle of avoidance that reinforces anxiety and shrinks into your world. Procrastination and self sabotage, missed opportunities. That's fear as a prison, erosion of self trust. Um, and when reframed as fear as a fuel, that's when reframed as a growth indicator. Fear becomes a compass pointing toward what matters most, heightened focus and performance, catalyst for growth, evidence of your courage. Now, the anatomy of fear in your brain. This is chapter two, which would be the neuroscience. The amygdala, it scans for danger and fast, but it's not always accurate. Then we have in the prefrontal cortex, your rational override system. It assesses threat level and can calm the amygdala's alarm, strengthened through exposure and mindfulness. Neuroplasticity is your superpower. Your brain constantly rewires itself based on experience. Every fear faced strengthens override. You know, neutral pathways for courage grow stronger. You know, um, new pathways create lasting change, and meaning repeated exposure creates neutral highways. And then courage becomes your default, which what once was paralyzing becomes routine. So science backed insight, which means like scientific evidence, um, verbalizing fears decreases amygdala activity. Labeling moves processing from emotional to logic. This study was studied at the UCLA study. Labeling emotions calms the brain's fear center. Now, moving on to the next slide. Part one is understanding the battlefield. See, when it comes to understanding the battlefield, before you can transform fear, you must understand it. The next few pages will, equip you with the knowledge of how fear operates in your mind and body, setting the foundation for transformation. So, there are five core fears that rule humanity: extinction, loss of autonomy. Oh, wait, no. Extinction, mutilation, loss of autonomy, separation, and ego, death. Now, you have to identify your core driver. Um, a public speaking fear, likely ego death. Starting a business could be all five. Networking anxiety, probably separation. Understanding your core fear is the first step. But now, instead of me just reading, off the topics of the five core fears or the titles of them, I'm going to go through them with you. So, number one being extinction, the fear of death or annihilation, the most fundamental survival instinct. It manifests as fear of flying, heights, or fatal illnesses. The second one is mutilation, the fear of bodily harm or disfigurement. That protects physical integrity. It manifests as fear of spiders, needles, or medical procedures. Number three is the loss of autonomy, the fear of being controlled or losing freedom. You know, um, it protects psychological boundaries, manifest as claustrophobia, commitment phobia, authority issues. Four is separation, the fear of abandonment or rejection. And this one is very common, okay? Connected to belonging, and it manifests as social anxiety, the fear of loneliness, and abandonment. That also stems through trauma as well. And then we have core fear number five. That's ego death. The fear of humiliation or shame protects, that protects self-esteem, and social standing. It manifests as fear of public speaking, failure, or looking foolish, right? So the hidden cost of playing small, the price of avoidance. This is the cost of inaction is often far greater than the cost of action. Wait, the cost of inaction is far greater than the cost of action. Every time that you retreat, you reinforce the brain's false belief that, you know, the threat was real. You know, um, there's a compound effect. Missed opportunities compound, and then you have the your word slowly shrinks, and then your world slowly shrinks, and then you have the self-trust erodes. Then the ultimate tragedy, the mass of men who lead lives of quiet desperation. An unveiled life is the ultimate cost of fear, the slow death of your potential. Ask yourself, what dreams have I abandoned? What risk am I taking? The research is clear. People regret what they didn't do far more than what they did. And the turning point, fear's power is just an illusion. Action dissolves it. So, with that being said, I'm going to stop sharing this slide. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. All right. All right. Excuse me, you guys. Okay. So, getting back to what I was saying before we finish up this episode and then close out, we will definitely continue the slide later on. However, I just wanted to go over, some of those first with you guys. Um, Now, getting back to what I was saying, um, we're going to be moving on to the science of growth. The science of growth, how your brain evolves when you stop letting fear punk you. Growth is not just some spiritual buzzword that people, you know, throw around on social media like it's aesthetic. Growth is a neurological, psychological, emotional, and energetic transformation that literally rewires your brain, as we previously discussed. It restructures your mindset, it reshapes your perception of reality, and evolves the way that you experience life. When you decide to step into discomfort instead of bowing down to fear, your brain activates something powerful called neuroplasticity. It basically means that your mind is constantly learning, adapting, rebuilding, destroying old patterns, and performing new pathways. But it only does that when you challenge it, when you stretch it, confront it, push past what feels safe and predictable. Most people don't stay stuck because they're incapable. They're incapable. You know, they stay stuck because they repeatedly choose comfort over courage, familiarity over possibility, and fear over growth. The brain is wired to conserve energy and protect you from the unknown. So if you live in routine, negativity, self-doubt, trauma responses, avoidance, or emotional numbness long enough, your brain gets comfortable there and it normalizes dysfunction. It programs stagnation. It convinces you that, playing small is smart and that settling is maturity and avoiding risks is wisdom. When really all you're really doing is training your brain to accept a life beneath your potential. So, but the second that you step into new experiences, intentional healing, accountability, vulnerability, discipline, faith, and emotional honesty, your brain begins building new patterns. The more you push yourself to do what fear tells you not to do, the more powerful and confident you become. The first time you choose growth over fear, your brain, it panics. The second time, it hesitates. The third time, it adjusts. By the fourth or fifth time, that same thing that used to terrify you becomes normal, familiar, you know, maybe even exciting. That's growth. That's taking what once scared you and turning it into something you now dominate instead of letting it dominate you. Again, that's taking something that once scared you and turning it into something you now dominate instead of allowing that fear to dominate you. So, and this is what the slideshow was pretty much all about, turning your fear into a power, or using fear as a power rather than letting it dominate you, rather than letting it, take over your life, or, dictate your life, and, control your actions, or how you decide, how you choose to live your own life. That's what I prepared the slideshow for you guys for. But we'll be continuing that um later on in the next few episodes. So you guys just stay tuned. But right now, follow me if you follow me, because we're almost done. Growth, it also exposes the lies that you believed about yourself. Okay, you realized that you weren't weak, you were scared, you weren't incapable, you were untrained, you weren't not ready, you just never trusted yourself enough to try. If that makes any sense. Growth humbles you because it forces you to face truth, responsibility, accountability, patterns, trauma, excuses, and self sabotage. But it also empowers you because once you witness yourself evolve, once you see your strength in real time, once you watch yourself become someone you used to admire, you stop underestimating yourself ever again, right? Growth is a painful thing, but it's also liberating. And it is. Growth, it is scary, but it's also clarifying. And it is uncomfortable, but it is also alignment. And we spoke about alignment and, manifestations and, energies and, so on. We spoke about that in the last few episodes. You know, um, in the last few episodes, all of that ties together, manifestation and energies and karmas, all of that, because we don't often realize how much we manifest certain things, including fear, into our lives. And this is not our lives just, this is on an everyday, day to day basis. We manifest certain things into our lives without even realizing it. If you guys have to be careful on what you allow your mind and your soul, and you have to be aware, and you have to be careful what you allow, you know your life, your mind, your what you allow yourself to speak into existence. Stop speaking negative things, or things that would potentially harm your life, into existence. If you see something great, you don't just see something great and expect it to happen. You need to put in the work, and you need to have the right type of energy and be in alignment with that, in order for you to be able to see it through, in order for that to, because it all connects, it's all connected. If the energy, if the alignment is off, if the energy ain't right, look, basically, you got to talk the talk and walk the walk. In other words, is what I'm saying, right? So you can't just say something and believe it and expect it to happen. No, you have to put in work too, because manifestation, it doesn't just work that way. Though it's some irony in that, because it does work that way, just not in the ways that we always think that it would. Go back and review my last few episodes speaking on that, though. We're not going to go through that this episode. We're going to continue forward. Um, so if you're not caught up, please go and review the next episode so you can get caught up, okay? Now, yeah, as I was saying, growth is uncomfortable, but it is also alignment. Once you experience real growth, not pretend fake healing or not aesthetic self care, but real, I faced my demons and didn't fold type of growth. You will never want to go back. You, to who you used to be, because you finally understand what it feels like to be powerful on purpose instead of scared out of habit, if that makes any sense. Follow me if you follow me, though. Um, Moving on to segment 4. This is where fear and growth meet. This is the breaking point that turns into your becoming. So, the place where fear and growth collide, that's where everything changes. That's the battlefield. That's where most people either level up or fall back into old patterns. That's that moment where your chest is tight and your thoughts are racing and your doubts are screaming, your comfort zone pulling you back, but sometimes inside of you is saying, nah, I can't keep living like this. I deserve better. I deserve more, or I want more. That's the crossroads where your life splits into two outcomes: the life you settle for or the life you fight for. What nobody tells you is that the fear never really disappears. You just become stronger than it. You learn to recognize the difference between danger and discomfort. You learn to feel fear and still move away. I mean, still move anyway. You learn to exist in uncertainty without allowing it to consume you. You learn to stop negotiating your potential with your insecurities. And when you realize that fear was never the villain, it it was the training ground. Fear gives you pressure. Growth turns that pressure into diamonds. Fear gives you resistance. Growth builds muscle from that resistance. Fear gives you doubt. Growth gives you evidence that you can overcome it. Fear makes you question yourself. Growth makes you believe in yourself. They're opposites, but they're also connected, and you need both. And let's talk real life for a second, right? Fear will make you stay quiet when you should speak. And fear will have you accepting disrespect because you don't want to be alone. Fear will, keep you broke because you're scared to take a risk. Fear will keep you stagnant because you're scared of failing. But growth requires you to risk being misunderstood, to risk failing, to risk losing people, to risk standing alone, and to risk outgrowing versions of yourself that once felt safe. Fear protects your past, growth protects your future, and you cannot serve both. So ask yourself, are you living or are you hiding? Are you choosing fear or are you choosing growth? Are you letting life happen to you or are you participating in your own evolution? Are you letting trauma run your life or are you finally ready to stand up and rewrite your own damn story from a place of power instead of pain? Because at some point, you get tired of surviving. You get tired of shrinking. You get tired of living beneath your own potential. And when that day comes, you finally decide that you're done letting fear dictate your destiny. Something shifts. Your energy shifts, your mindset shifts, your posture even shifts, the way you speak about yourself shifts, the way you move shifts. That's when you stop being controlled by fear and start becoming someone fear has to respect. Okay? Now, segment 5, right? This is about energy, alignment and fear and growth, and how fear and growth, shape your reality. So everything you do, think and say and feel, it carries energy. It's invisible, but it's definitely real. Your words, your thoughts, your intentions, they vibrate at a frequency, whether you notice it or not. That frequency interacts with the universe, okay? And we were just previously speaking, briefly about this. I kind of gave you guys a little, you know, rundown on it, um, and a recap, right? That frequency, yes, it reacts with the universe, other people, and circumstances around you, okay? Fear, when left unchecked, is a low frequency energy. It's heavy, it's dense, it's stagnant, and it drags you down into patterns that you don't want. Cycles you've tried to escape, and situations that feel familiar but are secretly toxic. Growth, on the other hand, is a high frequency energy. It's expansive, it's magnetic, it's alive, it pulls opportunities, abundance, alignment, and people, into your orbit, into your circle, who are vibing on the same level, on the same frequency. When you learn to consciously acknowledge your fear, lean into it and rewire your response, you start converting low frequency into high frequency power. That's the science behind using fear as a tool instead of letting it be a weapon against you. Your brain, your body, and your energy field are not separate. They're all connected. And when your mind rewires through neuroplasticity, when your heart feels the courage to act despite fear, and when your energy aligns with your intent, you literally begin to change your reality. You stop attracting the same situations, the same people, the same outcomes, because you are vibrating differently. Alignment isn't just spiritual mumbo jumbo. It's biological, psychological, and energetic. You know, when your actions, thoughts, and emotions are when your actions, thoughts and emotions all point in the same direction, you create a unified signal. The universe, or whatever higher order system you believe in, responds. Karma, cause and effect, manifestation, subconscious influence, it all ties together. You say it's impossible to manifest if you're living in fear? Nah, nah, it's impossible. Nah, not even impossible, right? Because the word impossible is simply made up of two words. It's I'm possible. So we're not going to use that. We're going to say not possible. So, it's not possible to manifest without awareness of your energy and alignment. You can't keep sabotaging yourself with low frequency thought patterns and expect high frequency results. The work is inner, the work is consistent, and the work is honest. Think about it. Every time you choose courage over fear, you're consciously raising your frequency. Every time you face discomfort instead of running, you're upgrading your energy system. Every time you challenge a limiting belief or break a toxic cycle, you're rewiring your reality. And the more you do it, the more seamless it becomes. That's growth at its purest, fear at its highest use, and alignment as the foundation that allows it all to translate into tangible results in your life. So now we're going to get to segment 6. This is walking through fear into growth and power, and the outro. Okay, so here's the reality nobody tells you, right? Are not external, they are internal. And the fears, the doubts, the insecurities, the I can't voices, the that's the battlefield. And the victories, the liberation, the power, the growth, that's your crown waiting at the finish line. You have to be willing to confront what scares you most, dissect it, understand it, and then use it as fuel instead of letting it use you as a punching bag, okay? So tonight, I want you to leave with this, okay? Fear is not your enemy. Growth is not your punishment. Fear is not a mystery. Alignment is not optional. And you, yes, you are the one who decides whether fear keeps you small or pushes you to levels that you never knew that you could reach. Ask yourself, which life am I willing to fight for? Which version of me is ready to rise? What fear will I face today that will shape the woman or man I become tomorrow? You know, because growth only shows up where fear is met head on. Power only exists, you know, Power only exists where fear once tried to hold you down. And alignment only occurs when you refuse to compromise your truth. So don't shrink back, don't run, don't negotiate with fear. Step into the discomfort, step into the challenge, and step into your power. This is your life. These are your choices. And this is your opportunity to finally stop letting fear write your story and start writing your own. Um, that's all for tonight, y'all. I'm Princess the Goddess. This is Peace of Mind Reloaded. And tonight we reminded ourselves that the wars we fight silently are the ones that make us legendary when we choose growth over fear, courage over comfort, and power over paralysis. You know my signature line, get your mind right or get left behind. But yeah, nah, for real. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Um, every episode, it only gets better from here, and we will be continuing because I love the topic that we are on. So we're gonna be on this topic for quite some time. So just be expecting, a part 3, 4, and just be expecting this conversation to continue. At any time, if you guys want to, um, share any thoughts or put in requests for topics or conversations, by all means, you are welcome to do so. You can DM me or even drop them in the comments. Make sure that y'all like, subscribe, share, spread the word, support your girl. You feel me? This is available on multiple platforms. I will be providing those links via my bio and on social media as well. So yeah, and make sure y'all stay tuned for more. You know, and like I said, if y'all want to, request topics or you want to share a story or do an interview or whatever the case may be, or if you even want to just join in on the conversation as a guest speaker or co-host, you're more than welcome to. Everybody's welcome. This is no judgment. The only people that ain't welcome is fake motherfuckers. You should. And motherfuckers that expect me to hold their hand, because we don't sugarcoat here. We the cutthroat mob, you already know. So if you're looking for somebody to babysit your ass or hold your hand or give you pats on the back, talk about, oh no, sweetie, it's all okay. No, get the fuck up out of here. This ain't the place for you. Alright, cool. But yeah, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. And please do stay tuned for more. As I previously stated, like, share, subscribe, spread the word. You feel me? and I will be dropping more episodes in the near future. So, yes. Um, Again, this is Peace of Mind Reloaded, and I'm your host, Princess the Goddess. Um, like I said, y'all, get your mind right or get left behind. But stay woke, stay conscious, and never let fear get the final say, okay? So that's all for tonight, y'all, and we are out.